Jessica Rennard, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Rich?
I'm doing all right. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with the creative community today,
Thank you.
especially coming from the fashion perspective. It's one of my joys in life,
Yeah, it's a dynamic industry for sure.
definitely. Let me give the audience a brief introduction here for you. That way they get a little feel for who you are before we jump into the conversation. You have over 15 years of experience in resale, surplus apparel, and sustainability sectors. You're the president of NuSource, where you lead efforts to scale resale fashion and drive circular economy solutions. You founded and scaled your own secondhand inventory business, giving you on hands entrepreneurial credibility in re commerce. You're a board member of the Wardrobe, contributing to industry governance and strategic direction in sustainable fashion. And you're a fashion industry thought leader featured on podcasts and in publications discussing monetization, growth, merchandising, and the resale circular fashion space.
Sounds good to me.
It is it's a it's a noble field that you've stepped into as there's so much new fashion hitting the market when they have a whole bunch of the leftover from last season still in play.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's
Overproduction and overconsumption is a
yeah,
problem.
yeah, definitely. As I mentioned before we hit record, I don't have a whole lot of structure other than my very first question, and that just takes us back in time a ways to where were you born and what was life like as a kid for Jessica?
Yeah, sure. I was born in West Haven, Connecticut, outside of New Haven, and my parents got divorced when I was two. So I'm part of the 50% stat that's floating around out there. My mom closed her eyes and took out a map and was like, how far can I move? And she landed on Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. So we moved there, and I've grown up in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia. And I'm the oldest of three siblings. Yeah,
Oldest of three. Okay, so then I'm assuming your mom may have gotten remarried after.
mom and dad both got remarried a few times.
Okay,
Yeah. My
gotcha.
mom's really funny. She has this good line, and she's like, I just have come to decide that I just don't have a good picker. My picker's broken. So yeah, I have a handful of half siblings floating around
I'm sure many people find that to be the thought at different occasions across their lifespan.
for sure.
What type of work was your mom in? Was it in a creative industry at all?
My mom was a court stenographer. She's the fastest typing woman I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And my dad owned his own real estate company. He's now retired and he day trades. So I think I got my entrepreneur bug from him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How about grandparents? Were your grandparents pretty uh, regular in your life growing up as a kid?
Yeah, very, very close to my grandparents. And I find it rare when I'm 38. So when I meet a friend my age that still has their grandparents around, I'm like very envious. So both of my grandfathers on either side were pilots, and both of my grandmothers didn't work. But I was
Okay,
very close to them growing up.
gotcha. And do you have fond memories of the experiences with them that was a bit loving and maybe some more attention than potentially what parents were able to give just because of the circumstances?
Oh, for sure. When I got my first job out of grad school, my commute was like an hour and a half. And that was the time I talked to my grandmother. So I'd call her on the way to work while I'm sitting in traffic. And, I also feel like I was raised with like my job is to make my grandmother like happy. And yeah, I don't know. It was just such a special, sweet relationship that's just very different than any other kind of relationship. So,
Yeah, I'm finding that to be a lot of the circumstance with guests is that whenever there seems to be scenarios where the parents are either having to work a whole lot, or there's scenarios like yours where parents are divorced and you've got to, juggle back and forth between. A lot of times, the parents or the grandparents end up providing a little bit more of that love and comfort that
yeah.
the parents just don't have the capacity to give because of circumstances and having to provide for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. When my mom got divorced, she moved in with her parents, right? So I was like a
Yeah.
toddler living with my grandparents. And then I'm divorced and also got divorced when my son was 2. So moved in
Okay.
with my mom for a little bit. So the generational patterns run pretty strong.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's special.
Okay. As a young girl in elementary school, were you one of the kids that sat at the front of the class, or were you moving towards the back of a class where you could potentially just fade into the background?
I was in the front. I was like the hand raiser. My son is the same way. I think times like 100. And I just like loved school as a kid, and especially elementary school. That's like such a, it's like low pressure, right, compared to your
Yeah,
other school years. So yeah.
for sure. So you were very engaged from the beginning at that mentality of wanting to learn and wanting to participate.
Yeah, I think there was also maybe a people pleasing aspect, and I see the
Okay.
same in my son, but I at first I thought maybe it was like an attention seeking thing, but
Yeah.
reflecting back, I feel like it was definitely, like you want to please your teacher and,
Right.
make them like you and be the smart one. So yeah.
Yeah. It, I think some of that falls on the just birth order, being that first child. You're kind of the first person that gets the attention, and you try to make sure that stays the
Yeah,
case as long as you possibly can.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah. Did you have fairly good amount of friends in elementary school, or were you more selective and just kept a small group that you hung out with?
My best friend is my first friend from first grade. We're still best friends today. I
Nice.
married my high school sweetheart, so I think I was selective but strong like nurturer in relationships. I didn't have a big circle of
Okay.
friends as a kid. I do now that I'm a mom, but it's more, I would say like we're a village,
Yeah.
everyone kind of chips in and picks up everyone's kids from school, but more, yeah, more selective, I would say.
Yeah. I understand what that is to have that kind of a long-term relationship with a close friend. My best friend, I've known him since second grade, so it's
Yeah.
been one of those types of things as well. How about any extracurricular activities in elementary? Did you have any, or was it just kind of go to school, do the work, come back home?
Yeah, I was a gymnast until high school.
Okay.
I'm like 4'11" and a half, so pretty small. Like
Yeah.
basketball, volleyball was never in my cards. So I was big into gymnastics and dance, and then further went on to coaching cheerleading, like through college and stuff. So
Okay. And did you find that creative expression something that you were truly enjoying at that time, or was there a bit of structure that was kind of limiting in dance?
I think I liked the creative part.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, I felt like it was like my own thing that I was kind of, like you're taught what to do, but there's still a variance of how you do it that I think
Yeah.
I like. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I've had a few dancers on, and that
Oh yeah.
seems to be the continuous story too.
Oh, okay.
Any art classes or anything like that that were drawing your attention into towards the end of elementary at all?
No, I think I was a math kid
Okay.
all through school. I don't think I really found like an itch for the creativity side until I was older, I would say.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, so you pulled some of that math from your dad.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
That is a characteristic that I think many creatives wish they just had that naturally,
Mm.
because it's so difficult when you're trying to create pieces, whether it's art, music, fashion, whatever. You're so focused on the creative that when you have to do the business side of it, a lot of times of it, many of us struggle. So
Yeah.
that's a fantastic characteristic to have that, and have that throughout your lifetime as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Shifting into middle school, did you find that to be a high contrast phase? coming from elementary and shifting into that, what might be a larger environment versus what elementary school was?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with ADD when I was in seventh grade. So fifth and
Okay.
sixth grade, I wasn't a failing student, but I really struggled.
Yeah.
So like were really hard. And then it was kind of that classic story. Like once I went on Adderall or whatever it was at the time, I went from like straight C student to straight A student and like became a little bit more clear. So
Yeah.
it's definitely different than elementary school.
So it allowed you to have that focus to where you could just
Yeah.
narrow in on things.
Yeah.
Did um did any of the friend structures at that point in time, as your experiences difficulty with school and trying to keep up with things, did the friend structures start to change as well, shifting into middle school?
Maybe a little bit. I feel like I surrounded myself with people that were smarter than me. I was just envious of them.
All right.
So yeah, I like gained some new friends in middle school and then, that changed in high school, but my like best friend from first grade, kind of stayed the same all throughout.
Yeah, yeah. That's very interesting too, to be looking at your interpersonal relationships from that perspective
Mhm.
that early on,
Yeah.
wanting
Yeah.
to be around the smarter people that look like they were getting ahead, probably
hmm
quicker, probably easier than what it may have
Yeah.
been.
It's like, how come they can do it and I can't? Like, what are they doing and I'm not doing? What do they have for breakfast? Just like trying to understand why am I so different? So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did some of that play in now? The reason I'm asking this at this point is because of understanding that going into middle school, that's when hormones and everything start to really kick in for individuals, male and female. But having that difficulty towards the end of elementary with the grades and classes, did that also play into your mental state in terms of confidence in what you were doing? Because you just mentioned wondering why I was so different.
Yeah. I think self-esteem was definitely a hot topic all
Okay.
through my schooling years.
All
Um,
right.
so yeah, I just remember having those be common conversations with my mom growing up. So I think that was an issue for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doing gymnastics at that point, did that allow you to have some release from some of that pressure in
Yeah,
middle school?
I think it was an outlet, but it also came with counter pressure because
For sure.
gymnastics, there's a lot of precision. It's like perfectionism is how you climb. That mixed with ADD and like low self-esteem. I didn't make it. I was like just getting to the point where I would have been put into like the junior B Olympics
Yeah, yeah.
qualifications and stopped because it was too much.
Too
Um,
much pressure.
yeah, and so if you have low self-esteem and you're in that kind of sport, it doesn't always help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. All right. How about shifting into high school? Did once you started getting that medicative assistance to be able to focus a little bit more, how is shifting into high school, say towards sophomore year? Because you said you started around 15 with
Seventh,
medication.
fifth grade. Yeah.
Some
So what is that? I don't even know. The young.
seven, 13, 14
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So shifting into high school, how did that change for you in terms of that component?
Still was really challenging. I
Still,
found like I definitely found my niche where I excelled, which just continued to be the math side of things.
yeah.
I liked, like, I really enjoyed art and science, but like where my grades were good were, on the statistics and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And then I met my husband when I was in ninth grade. So I just was like boy crazy for sure.
Right.
Which was a little distracting, but yeah.
For sure. I get it. I get it. Did you start paying attention to fashion at any point in high school at all in terms of thinking this is something that's really interesting to me?
Yeah. I would leave the house wearing a certain outfit that was like approved by my mom. I would get to school and go right to the bathroom and like hem my skirt with earrings or like cut my shirt or, just like I look back at pictures, I'm like, oh my God, I should have been put in a home. Like I should have been put away. But it was definitely a way to express myself and maybe a little rebellious too, of like,
Okay.
I was raised Catholic and grew up in a
Okay.
pretty strict household. So I think it was an outlet of expression.
Okay. So did you guys go to mass and stuff regularly? Okay. I get it. I get it. Yeah, I was up until third grade, I went to public school. And then in fourth grade, my parents put me in a private Christian school. And it was like ultra constrained. And
Hmm.
I didn't have the freedom of creativity. I was on a track to be able to step into this progressed art program at the end of third grade, and then didn't even get the opportunity because my parents pulled me out and then sent me to this private school. And it was just, for me, it was just so constraining. Like I could just barely do what I needed to get through a day, and didn't even have real opportunities for any creative expression at that point in time, even until I got into junior high, started playing soccer, and the uh, the school didn't have the equipment to mark off the field and everything. So me and one of my buddies ended up, we kind of hand painted
Oh,
everything. We
yeah.
just draw lines out and then hand painted everything. And then I would do the center of the field with the school's logo on it.
Oh, cool. That's a good story.
So that was a bit of the creative expression that I was able to
Fine.
achieve
Yeah.
within that constraint.
Interesting.
So yeah, I can totally relate to having to conform in this way as you're leaving the house. But then
Hmm.
you get to school and you're like, all right, now I gotta turn into the real me.
Right. Yeah. And then when you go back home, you like put it all back together and
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you have a tendency to leave some of that in the locker so you would not have to transition stuff back and forth a lot?
Yeah, I was the kid like when you open the locker, just like things like a million things came falling out. Like there was no sense of organization. There might have been an old lunch bag in there. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Moving up into junior year, senior year, are you starting to think about what you're going to do after high school for like college or going into a certain career or anything like that?
No, I just remember feeling so lost. Like people, especially then, had clear paths of like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a dentist. And I just didn't fall into any of those molds. So my dad, because I had lived in Pennsylvania for so long, my dad was like, well, hey, if you come to college in Connecticut, I'll buy you a jet ski and a car. And I was like,
Okay.
done. Totally. I got into a school I had no play, like did not deserve to get into that school. It was like way above. It was Quinnipiac. They would have been an Ivy League school if they had
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
supports to support it. And yeah, so like my beginning years of college were really rough because I probably should have gone to a community college or started with something that was more like in my wheelhouse, but kind of got
Got you.
over my head. Yeah.
Did your boyfriend go along with you, or did you kind of
No.
have to shift into a long distance
Yeah.
scenario?
He went to University of Missouri.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So we
All
did
right.
distance.
Got you. Yeah. I can imagine that would have been difficult too, especially being together that amount of time and then having to go into a long distance situation.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. But it was also kind of nice because I was like, okay, relationship check.
Yeah.
Like, and I see him when I see him and it's scheduled and then he kind of goes back, right? And then
Right.
I focus on, tried to focus on school and other things. Yeah.
As you stepped into that, shifting from mom in Pennsylvania to Connecticut with dad, did you see as much of a stark contrast in community at that point in time as well?
Yeah, like my personal community.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Community around the school, the way that maybe if it was a lot of more city or if it was still kind of outside of town. type scenarios versus where you were
Yeah,
living with your mom?
it was like by the beach, so that was nice. But definitely more suburbs. So yeah, it was a little different.
Got you. And what did you step into for study at, when you were there?
I majored in sociology, and I remember making that decision by being like, "Oh, I like people. Let's
Right.
learn about people." Like you just very fly by the seat of your pants kind of way of making a decision. So yeah, but I liked it.
Did do you think some of that decision came from the fact that you were earlier in school, you were wanting to hang around the smarter kids?
Yeah, maybe
You
just
wanted to understand that better?
yeah, like a curiosity of just understanding different types of people. You know, sociology is the study of groups of people, and psychology is like
Yeah.
one-on-one. So I guess there's a reason I chose the sociology path over psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you're getting closer and more in depth with the school, say sophomore, junior year, are you starting to get to a place of internal comfort at that point at all?
Not until my junior year. I failed out of college my freshman year and moved back home to Pennsylvania.
Okay,
Like
gotcha.
packed my bags and was like, "Ooh, that was a little not meant for me." Moved back to Pennsylvania and put myself in a community college. And then
Okay,
once I got like a couple years under my belt, I went to Westchester University.
right.
Um, and then I really found my way. So it was like a couple messy years, and then it was like, okay, here's a clear path.
Yeah, and at that point in time, were you having to work to go to school as well, or did you have the opportunity just to focus on school?
No, I started working when I was 14 and never stopped.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What what types of jobs were you stepping into?
I worked at Manhattan Bagel and I would ride my bike to the bagel shop before high school and like open the shop and then ride my bike to school and then after school go back and close up the bagel shop. I loved it. Like they people called it Jessica's Bagel, you know, in my neighborhood. I worked there from age 14 to like 20, 21. It just became part of my identity. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow, Jess, you're skipping over all kinds of
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that part.
fantastic
I
stuff.
forgot. Yeah. Yeah.
That's very interesting because it seems as if once you got that job, it turned into a scenario where it was enjoyable to be yourself. I would imagine you felt a joy of serving people
Hmm.
at that point in time. So it's
Yeah.
giving you that internal confidence to be who you are.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about what that purpose was. Like, yeah, what purpose did that serve for me as a kid? But probably a
Yeah.
lot.
Oh, I imagine it was hugely impactful. Even with what you're doing now currently, I could see how that was the foundation for
Mhm.
that, of looking at what's going on in the world and wanting to make sure it's responsibly taking place,
Yeah.
essentially. Because, I mean, doing customer service, you have to be concerned about, how those customers are coming in and getting treated.
Yeah. And I forged such strong relationships. It's crazy. I still live in the same community that I grew up in. And
Nice.
I'll be, you know, at a local restaurant and I'll see a like guy with gray hair and I'm like, sesame toasted with butter? Is that you? Like I remember their order. It's just like, and they're
Yeah,
all still here and I'm still here and it's just funny. Yeah.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Also, too, the fact that they're calling it Jessica's Bagels and not the name of what it
Yeah.
was. I think that's a testament as well to that customer service aspect. And I would assume, too, you had a cheery attitude as well. Didn't really have a lot of rough days where you were letting that be shown to the customers.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I felt like I was it was a performance every day. And I was like on stage in my job. Yeah, I mean, I guess so, right? It was
Okay.
like to make people happy and I guess such a weird place like Manhattan Bagel, but they like built a little stool for me that's still there today.
Oh,
The
well,
counter because I couldn't see over the, all the bagels. So
gotcha.
it was a cute part, definitely a cute part of my childhood.
I can imagine. Yeah, that totally plays into that little people pleaser as a
Hmm.
child. You just got to step into that fully at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah. Good point.
That's what I do. Once you get back, get those few years of community college under your belt, and then you're stepping back into a university setting, you said it was a whole lot more comfortable at
Mhm.
that point in time. Was it the confidence that it built out of being in a smaller community college versus a university setting? Is that what
Yeah.
helped?
I remember feeling seen. Like it sounds so corny, but
That
big
is a huge
school.
thing.
Yeah, big school went under the radar, not enough
Right.
help. Probably should have had an IEP and I didn't. Still had the
Yeah.
whole ADD thing kicking. And then I
Yeah.
went to community college and I probably, sat at the front of the class and like developed relationships with my teachers. And then I really kind of bought into the whole thing. I was like, okay, I hit rock bottom. I failed out of college. I'm going to turn it around. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so it was like one of those pivotal moments for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. The other interesting thing that I'm seeing as well is that when you were in the environment of the bagel shop, working with your hands, taking care of customers, all of that, it seemed like that was a place where that ADD really didn't affect you as much because the functionality of doing things probably allowed you to focus a lot
Mhm.
easier. And
Yeah,
especially if
I
you're
thrive.
remembering orders.
Yeah, I thrive in that multitasking, like juggling a lot of balls at once. And I remember what I loved about the Manhattan Bagel thing was like I was taking an order, I was answering the phone, I had stuff on the grill, cutting a bagel, putting it in the toaster. And I kind of find myself doing those. That's what I do for a living now, right? Like being president of a small company, I still get to do all that kind of stuff.
Right. I think that's a lot of times where in society we fall short in terms of the individualization of it, people, right? In itself. We know that ADD is a lot more prevalent now than it was years prior. And I don't think that we're looking at it from a perspective of let's figure out what this individual is really good at and let's try and put them in that type of an environment so they can excel versus let's just write them a script, get them this, put them back in the same place where they're at, and then let them try to move forward with the medications. My mindset is like, let's figure out what's the best thing that they can do and how they learn best, and
Mhm.
let's nurture that. Let's put them in that environment so they can excel. Maybe they never get great at reading. That's okay. But if
Right,
they're excelling in math, like you said you did, then you don't have to always read when you're out in the regular workforce world. But
right.
that math does come into play with doing
Hmm.
business for sure.
Yeah.
I understand the environment of working in that bagel shop based off of my first job as well. It was a local company here in Metro Detroit called Tubby's Submarines, and it was kind of similar to Jimmy John's before Jimmy John's started
Okay.
getting real huge.
Okay.
So I was that type of employee that was doing everything that you were saying. I was
Mhm.
making something, answering a phone, putting something on the grill. I was always multitasking and it just came naturally for me
Mhm.
to operate like that. Ended up moving into after about 8 years working for them, moved into training franchise owners, new
Oh,
franchise owners.
yeah.
Then I'd have to go to their store and help train their first employees and get them opened, all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
it was real easy for me, especially with a creative mind, to be able to figure out at that point, even with my own store, managing it, I was able to look at my employees from that perspective of what are they really good at?
Hmm.
Like if they were super uncomfortable talking to a customer, I would just move them away from the register. Like,
Right.
let me just put you over here where you're comfortable. You're really good at putting these things together or doing prep work, all that kind of stuff. I always had that in my head because I knew how uncomfortable it was for me to start.
Hmm.
I'm like, let me just make sure I try to keep everybody in a comfortable spot moving forward. That way, everything should run smoothly for the most part.
Yeah.
Once you're graduating from college, are you at that point still in sociology and thinking you may go into that type of field of work? Or are you thinking a little bit more towards maybe I want to get into some fashion stuff?
Yeah, so through college, probably starting in my junior year, I got my first job in fashion. I think maybe in high school I worked at like one of the department stores at some point, but in college I worked at Plato's Closet near me.
Okay. Yep.
Um, yeah, so like people would bring in clothes, you're like evaluating their clothing at the register, you're handing them cash for their clothes, and then they're purchasing right within the store.
Yeah.
Um, and that was my first job kind of in the industry that I'm in now. So that really like stuck with me.
It's fascinating. I was just thinking of that as I was reading through the intro for you and beforehand as I was, just familiarizing again was Plato's Closet. That's
Hmm.
exactly what popped in my head because the ones that we've had around here in Michigan, Metro Detroit, have disappeared.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know what the reason is for that because they were always busy.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it may have just been a management scenario or what.
Yeah.
But
Huh, that's sad.
yeah, but I thought it was genius when I first came across it. I was like,
Sure,
oh,
yeah.
what? I can go in here and buy a pair of used Guess jeans or whatever,
Hmm.
or find a pair of Nikes that are really hot on the market and resell them.
Yeah.
Those types of things. Did that spur the initial thought process in your head of kind of like an aha moment of like, oh, this is an opportunity?
Yeah, I was enamored with like people cleaning out their closet, bringing in old clothes they're leaving with cash.
Yeah.
I'm the buyer at the counter, right? It gives you the sense of like authority.
Right.
And I started to learn all about the resale value of different brands. I worked directly under the owner. She really took me under her wing. Like she sent me to Florence, Italy for 2 weeks to do fashion research my senior year. So I
Oh
just
wow.
like, yeah, I went all in, and loved it. Yeah.
Fascinating. Do you mind expounding more on that traveling abroad scenario?
Yeah, her daughter at the time was going to school over there, and we were just trying to create like lookbooks. And the store was the smallest Plato's Closet in the entire franchise. So the franchise had at the time like 500 locations, but it was the highest grossing per square foot because of
Oh,
the area that it was in. It was like in a very high-end area. So we had to
yeah.
keep up with the trends that were coming in to make sure that we were buying the right things from our customers. So I think it was
Yeah.
a little mix of she really liked me and wanted to keep me happy. Was fashion research for Plato's Closet in Italy necessary? Probably not.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
right? But it was, it was like a perk of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it once you got over there and you experienced that community of fashion?
Yeah, it's next level. And
Yeah.
I developed the abroad itch. I grew up, my dad always traveled abroad, and he had this theory that if you're going to be on the plane for longer than 4 hours, you don't stay in the US. You just go. You
Mm,
go to Europe and you stay on the plane for an extra 2 hours and you find yourself in London or Ireland or something. So yeah, I really the fashion thing really spoke to me when I was over there. And then I just loved the food and the culture and the way of life and how different it is from the US. People move slower, they talk slower. It's just,
yeah.
different.
Different vibe for sure.
Yeah.
Did you see any connections between the fashion that they were doing and potentially the art that was there as well?
Yeah, it seemed to just really have a different purpose than what it when it
Yeah.
is here in the US.
Yeah.
There's fast fashion everywhere, but I was there in '06 or '07. Um,
Okay.
And so the fast fashion wasn't really a thing. There's
Yeah.
leather and shoe cobblers on every street corner next to the museum. It's just so different. And I really liked that. Yeah.
the craftsmanship in
Mm.
Italy is still like a mainstay.
Yeah.
Like you experience so much of a higher level experience of even just going into a neighbor store
Mhm.
that's got a tailor in it, and then have the materials all over, and you actually get something made from start to finish versus just pulling it off of a rack.
Yeah.
Uh, those are the things that I've always been fascinated by from other cultures and other communities, especially kind of like fashion meccas, which Italy is kind of
Madrid.
known for being that. Once you came back to America from that experience, how did that change the way that you started to think about what you were doing at Plato's Closet?
Yeah, so I remember just thinking like, how am I going to make a career out of this? Like, how can I check all the boxes? Like, be fulfilled, love what I do, make enough money to pay my bills, and find that career path. And I didn't know how to put it together.
Right.
Um, but like, it definitely was the itch that I just like, it like led me to where I am now, you know? So it was interesting.
Okay. And are you reconnecting with the boyfriend from that's at Missouri at this point in time? Are you guys starting to get to a place where you're closer?
Yeah. I was visiting him, he was visiting me. It was definitely getting more serious, but I think I was like less enamored with him and more enamored with my work. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. And then I graduated and went right on to get my master's. So yeah, I like turned on serious adult mode rather quickly once I like found what I love to do. Yeah.
Okay. And what you got your master's in was?
I got my master's in it was called an MPA, so it was the Master's of Public Administration. And I was a first generation, person to graduate college in my family, and there was a lot of pressure to do continued education. I don't think I
Okay.
would have chosen to do it if my grandmother wasn't alive. It was very much to like make her happy. Um,
Oh,
and I felt a lot of pressure to get my MBA, and I knew I wouldn't make it. Like the tests were scary to me, and it seemed really daunting. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go the people route again, right? Like I like
right.
to help people, that whole thing. And got my MPA. My first job out of grad school, I just loved taking this nonprofit and implementing like for-profit business practices into what they did. So I was like, oh man, maybe I should have gone the MBA route. What am I doing? So yeah,
Right. Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. When you started seeing the opportunity to implement the for profit concept into the nonprofit, how did that start to empower you with the things that you were stepping into and trying to do and accomplish?
Yeah, it was cool because the way that I was doing it was through clothing. So I worked for a nonprofit. We collected clothing to empower women going back into the workforce. So when we would get clothing that a woman couldn't wear into a job interview, I opened up
Yeah,
a boutique within the nonprofit to further fund the initiatives. And like quickly, my business line started surpassing the rest of the organization's, income. And
yeah,
the executive director would be like, "Oh, Jessica can sell a pen without ink in it, or she can sell ice to or an igloo." I don't know, whatever those stupid phrases are. And
yeah,
that built a lot of confidence. And I was like, "Oh, I'm pretty good at this. Like I can sell. I know my brands. I know resale. I know secondhand fashion, and this is my jam."
for
Yeah.
sure. That's amazing to me. And the reason I say that is because I've worked with a few nonprofits over the years. And one of the first things that I look at is whether or not they're developing any products that is additional income to fundraising or any of that stuff. And it amazes me that none of them have that thought.
Hmm. Yeah.
So for you to establish like a mini boutique store that's literally bypassing the income of what the whole organization is doing, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's cool. And I'm on the board for them now. So I've
Okay.
kept them like very close. And this has been interesting to watch them grow. Now they have 5 stores and it's really a part of their DNA as an organization now. So it's been cool to watch.
Fantastic. You said that one of the initiatives was helping women in terms of that. Can you expound on that just a little bit more?
Yeah, so we cater to a low income demographic, a lot of women coming out of prison or women that were homeless that we would schedule appointments. We would do like job training and resume review, and then they would schedule appointments to, come in and get dressed to pick out an outfit for an interview.
Yeah,
And I really liked that it was catered to women. Now it's catered to men and women. They've
yeah,
expanded, but I liked the women only thing.
for sure, for sure. Did I'm seeing that little people pleaser girl
Yeah, I guess me too. I didn't know.
still having that impact on society.
Hmm.
Uh, but what a noble thing as well, because I don't think, again, I don't think the way that we think about things in America a lot of times is logical, or with a lot of empathy towards another
Hmm.
person's situation, especially if they're just trying to make a difference and get back into society if they've been in prison or whatever. Like that's a huge transition to have to come out of that
Yeah.
environment and step back into the world that they left.
Yeah.
Um, so to be able to be someone who gives them a little bit of oomph back in their step by saying, here's an outfit for you.
Yeah.
Here's something that you can wear to go to look for a job or to go to interviews. I think that's just, it's noble in and of itself. Um,
Mhm.
Another characteristic within you that I don't know if you've kind of wrapped your head around and embraced that much.
Yeah, I don't think so. Learning as we go here.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, as you're moving along with that, are you starting to see that I think I might have an opportunity to do this outside of that organization and create something of my own?
I knew I was good at it, but at the time, so now it's like 2009, the
Okay.
resale industry didn't really yet have full-fledged careers.
Right.
It's like if you wanted to be in secondhand fashion, you had to work at a thrift store. At
Yeah.
this point, I think I was making like $32,000 a year salary. And it's just, I was 23, 24 years old and,
Yeah.
just kind of wanted more, but didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So then I worked for a 10 store consignment chain, and I was the district manager of those stores and liked it, but didn't love it. Yeah. And then I had my son, and then everything changed after that.
Got you. Um, and I'm assuming there was a marriage that took
Yeah.
place in there somewhere.
Somewhere. Yeah. Yep. 2013.
Okay. Once you had your son, how did that dynamic, being a new mother, how did that change for you in terms of the mindset of responsibility and also to thinking back about what your early childhood was like?
Hmm. So after I had him, the year that I was pregnant, I felt really lost in my career path. Like I had worked for every thrift store and consignment store in a 40-mile radius and just still
Gotcha.
couldn't like find my way. So I
Yeah.
did a complete departure and I went and worked for a trade school. I was an
Okay.
admissions counselor for an HVAC. It's bizarre, like the most bizarre turn of events. I was an admissions counselor for an HVAC school. And I think it allowed me to just like take the pressure off while I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
after I had him, I was like, oh, I'm not going back. Like, I'm not going back to work. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to work for anyone. I haven't really liked anything that I did enough to like stay on that particular trajectory. So like I'm going to create my own thing. And I
Yeah.
don't I that probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't become a mom because you just see things so differently.
For sure. And did you, again, with that, having that child and knowing, okay, when I was young, my parents split up, and I remember what I felt like at that point in time, and I want to potentially do something different. Did that come to the forefront of your mind at that
I,
point as well?
I think it did in terms of I wanted to find a career path. Like, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom for most of my childhood, and she had gone through a messy divorce, and I watched her be very like, financially stressed.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think when I had him, I was like, I'm going to create a different path for myself, like financially and on the career path. I didn't think about it as like, oh, I'm going to create this family environment and make sure that my family stays intact and develop this like great relationship with my husband. I was like laser focused on my career.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you wanted to make sure that there was no ifs, ands, or buts about being the provider component for
Yeah,
yourself.
and I wanted to like I don't know, it got weird and competitive. I wanted to like surpass my husband and at the time and make sure that like I could stand on my own 2 feet.
Right.
Because
Right.
I my mom went through a messy situation and it was 8 years of her life that was like destroyed. Yeah.
Right. I get it. I
Mhm.
totally get it. That makes all kinds of sense. What type of work did your husband do at that point where that competitiveness wanted to come out?
So I found him his first job out of college. He got
Okay.
into car sales at a used car dealership. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like we can kind of do the same thing. But it was exotic high-end cars.
Yeah.
Still there today. And he got the job at that point. It was like 2012, and the starting salary was like 80,000. And I was like, there was just such a discrepancy between our two incomes, and I felt capable, but I hadn't found a way to like prove it to
Yeah.
myself. So it really drove me to be competitive. I don't know. It sounds not good, but
No, it sounds realistic, is what
okay.
it sounds
Yeah.
like to me. I don't see it as a not good thing. I
Yeah.
see it as I see it as you stepping into your confidence because as you said earlier, like you had that a little bit of that lack of confidence in elementary and junior high and then moving into high school it got even more so. And then you go off to Connecticut to go to school, and that was even more confidence crushing, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
because of the environment. So I see that as you stepping into something that's allowing you to have those shoes that you can walk in with your shoulders back and head up type
Mhm.
scenario.
Yeah, and I don't know if competitive is the right word. I think I was just really envious. I was envious that he got a job in an industry that he loved. He was financially satisfied and he was fulfilled every day. And I was like, man, like, why don't I have that? Yeah.
Right. Makes sense as well. And also too, when I'm seeing you may not even recognize this, but what I'm saying is the fact that you got him the opportunity at the high end exotics, right? And you said he's still there, still
Mm-hmm.
doing that.
Well, there today.
So the way I'm kind of mirroring that for you is the trip that you went to Italy and you were able to see that world, that higher end fashion side of things,
Mm-hmm.
which, kind of merges back with the high end cars. And I would guess that maybe that subconsciously was in your head that, oh, he's in this higher end environment and able to thrive in it. I got a taste of that, but I haven't been able to find it here in America yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
The thought process once you get laser focused and you're making the decision of, all right, I'm going to figure this out, what is the thing that comes to your mind of this is what I'm going to try to develop into a big picture scenario?
What came into my mind?
Yeah.
I still think I was trying to figure out like what do I have? What do I have that I can build from? And I started my own consulting agency, but it wasn't really an agency. And I went back to all of the thrift stores and consignment stores that I had worked for and like pitched myself
Okay.
uh, where I saw holes in their businesses at the time that I was working there. Because I had worked for so many, I was able to like pick and choose what worked from different shops and kind of put it all together.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's, I guess, where it all started. Yeah.
And I don't want to downplay this for you because I almost feel that you're downplaying it for yourself. The fact that you created a consulting agency and it may have just been only you as the
Mhm.
consulting agency. That's where I think you may be downplaying it if that's the case. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I had no business to be a consulting. Like I didn't get my MBA. I didn't really have any, I had no corporate structure under my belt.
Throw
Um,
that out the window, Jess.
okay, okay,
Throw that out the window.
okay.
And the reason I say that is because you made a creative pivot.
Mm,
And I
mhm,
think this is a key point for the audience and the creative community is you started thinking about your experiences, what you had done, and what the potential could be if you were to implement that in a different way.
mhm.
So you created this consulting agency, and there's individual freelance graphic designers that are out there
Yeah, yeah,
that are, it's just them working
right.
out of the house, right? But they set it up as a business and they operate as a small business type of scenario. I'm one of those people. I
Mhm,
have this podcast that's set up as a business. I have my graphic design thing that I do, but it's just me. So I don't think you have to have those things like the MBAs, the pieces of paper that said you're accomplished and can do all this stuff because you have the drive and you have this mind that is thinking differently
mhm.
than most do because you had that ADD. Your brain functions completely different than way other people do.
Yeah,
You're better at multitasking and having your brain thinking about multiple things than you are if you were just stuck in one single thing that you had to do repetitively every day.
but you should watch me try to clean my house. It's so funny. It really is funny. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So but yeah, I wanted to highlight that for the audience because if creatives can start thinking the way that you thought to establish that based on some of the experiences you had, even from the bagel shop experience, right? You knew how to operate there and thrived and created a scenario where you were known for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're just shifting into another industry. I think many times as creatives, you get stuck in this mindset and have blinders on thinking, okay, we can only go in this one direction. But you have all kinds of different talents that are available and you can do different things. It's just a matter of looking at the different industry and seeing that angle of where I can pivot myself into. And I
Yeah,
see that's what you did.
yeah, yeah. No, that's a really good point.
Once you got into that, and started getting some feedback from pitching these individual stores, did you start to see that as being something as where you felt like you could really start to excel?
Hmm. Yeah, I just went full like psycho mode. I signed on 14 stores in like a month.
Nice.
And was again juggling. Okay, store A needs help with social media, so we're gonna do a whole build out there. Store
Yeah.
B needs help with this. I hired three people that worked for me at the store at Plato's.
Yeah.
They were managing different accounts, and I started to like feel good and get my career confidence up, I guess. And I loved it. Just loved it. Yeah.
Nice. See that's how creatives need to move. Exactly that way. Get enough counts under your belt,
Mhm.
hire out some people to help you with it, especially if they're already in the store environment. They understand what's going on day to day, and then just continue to work from there.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned it in the beginning too, like being in school and just if kids could just be placed where their strengths are.
Yeah,
So very quickly, I learned that I have extremely defined strengths and equally defined weaknesses. So the people that I hired, I made sure could fill all the roles that I could not. And so that I was just landing accounts and collecting the checks. And then, they were doing the tactical work.
yeah,
Yeah, so.
that's perfect. That's amazing. You got to put that on a board somewhere so that you see that and remember that every day
Mhm.
because that's that great reminder of who you are to keep that confidence and component within you that wants to maybe fall back into that younger self's
Mhm.
confidence space of lacking it. Because, again, thinking that way is what sets you apart from
Mhm.
others.
Mhm.
And I think that is an asset that you have, and the ability to do that, that should be at the forefront of your mind to give you that confidence of, it's a new day. I'm gonna go do what I
Right.
do my thing.
Yeah.
After you get these 14 accounts and you get that moving and working and operating in that way, at what point do you start to think about creating this system of, and then go ahead and registering it with a trademark as it fully being yours and the thing that's going to continue to move you into what you're doing currently?
Yeah, one of my clients offered me a full-time job, and
Okay.
so they had 12 retail locations, and they were losing their supply very quickly because big box retail was like going under, and they typically bought returns from big box retail. And it was like a confidence moment because every time they offered me a full-time job, I'd be like, no, like I promised myself I wasn't going to work for anyone, but I'll remain consulting. And the more I said no, the higher the offers, kept
Yes.
driving.
Yep.
And eventually I said yes, but it was like very much on my terms and created a role that I wanted where I wanted to create my own business within their business by finding what their needs were that needed to be solved. And so that quickly became this mystery box business. And their stores all closed during COVID, and I still wanted to go to work every day. So while they were closed, I was going into our warehouse and like building these used mystery boxes, and like that's kind of how it all happened.
And once you started doing that, were you already looking at, oh, here's a huge opportunity with e-commerce and social media as well to get these out? Or what was the thought of, how am I going to get this out to the world?
Well, so the world was shut down, and
Yeah.
I had already developed a really strong community for myself in the resale
Okay.
community on social media. Like people knew me as this like weirdo that's been in secondhand, her whole life after
Yeah.
Bagel, right? So
Yes.
I had a strong following on social. So once I built that product, which was like curating boxes, I already had the customer base like kind of sitting there, and the world stopped. So like I had a captive audience, I had the strong product, I had the reputation, and it kind of was like the perfect storm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You're not a weirdo. You just work in a different, different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Work in a different way in a different field. And two, I think what that did to Americans was it made them start to think differently
Yeah.
about how they're going to survive when they
Mhm.
can't go to that regular job every day. I
Yeah,
know,
think about your local restaurants that how
yeah.
quickly they pivoted into delivery services, or like even my nail salon girl started doing in-home nail appointments, and now in-home nail appointments are a thing. Like none of that would have happened if COVID didn't happen.
So there absolutely was benefits to it, even though it sucked
Yeah.
completely. But yeah, it made people think differently, and those are huge key points of how people started pivoting and figuring out, all right, I've still got to make money. These bills are not going away just because this virus is going around. So yeah, I saw e-commerce just explode at that point in time,
Mhm.
in terms of even just people thinking, all right, I'm stuck at home. What can I do to make money?
Right.
Shopify is super easy if you can
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at it, right?
Yeah.
And navigate to create your own website, put a product up there, even if
Mhm.
it's a resale product. At
Yeah.
least it's at least it's under your quote unquote brand
Yeah.
because it's you doing it. Did you see, once you're getting into that, is this, did the divorce component, did that come into play before the pandemic or maybe through the pandemic for you?
I moved out in 2019, August 2019. So,
Okay, so
you know what
just
happened when I became a different person when I found myself.
okay.
Like there was like Jessica before, There was
Yeah,
career job. Like once I found my way in the world and I like found myself, I
yeah,
lost all. It just the two
just
did
fell
not work
apart.
together. Yeah.
Right.
So that was like right as I was starting the business, 2019, I also left. Yeah.
Got you. And from that perspective, and you can answer as much as you want or not as much as you want.
Okay.
From that perspective, was it a sense that you were realizing with this new confidence, right, that you needed stuff that you were allowing, um, maybe not the bar to be up to par for you, stuff
Mhm.
that you needed that you were just kind of being like, okay, I'm not going to get it, so I'll just keep going along. Did that confidence make that kind of a shift in terms of mindset?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's definitely for sure what happened. And because
Yeah.
I found I just like saw the world differently, I felt differently about myself. I saw opportunities and what it
Yeah.
was really like to feel fulfilled. Now, like feeling fulfilled at work is just one box, but I think I have always identified myself with my work, and my
Hmm.
work has been always part of my identity. So, yeah, the two just didn't sustain together.
Wasn't compatible anymore. Yeah. I get it. I get it. And two, to your credit as well, when women get the confidence of who they are and what they want and what they do, they start to realize I deserve more.
Mhm.
I deserve to be treated differently. I deserve to have a different type of a relationship in terms of communication, uh,
Mhm.
cohesion,
Yeah,
synergy, working
all right.
together as a unit. Because it essentially is why you get married, is to work
Mhm.
together as a unit to kind of build from there. And it doesn't always work. Doesn't always work, but when a female gets that confidence of, all right, I've just been putting up with things and it's time for me to not be putting up with those things anymore, I think it's a great thing. And from the way the conversation has gone about your story, I keep going back to that little girl who was trying to please and was always self-conscious in a way about
Mhm.
her surroundings and who was around her. Now gets to step into who she is, and that's coming to life. And you're realizing, wait, I want more. I want more for myself because I've got this bit of confidence back.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I'm pointing out some things that are allowing you to see things from a different
Yeah.
angle as well to build
Yeah.
that up within you.
Mhm.
Because what I'm seeing is a very strong woman sitting on the other side of the microphone with me. And you have so many talents that I've seen throughout your storyline that you may just not remember to give yourself credit for. And hopefully, I'm highlighting some of that for you with this
Yeah.
conversation, as well
Yeah.
as putting that out to the world,
Right, right. Yeah.
the creative environment, creative community. Once you stepped onto that capacity of you got the 14 stores, you're building this out, I'm seeing these systems work, you're in the warehouse essentially by yourself, so to speak.
Mhm.
How does that start to generate more ideas for you?
Yeah, I became addicted to being in the warehouse, like being surrounded. I had to be surrounded by the clothing. I had to touch it. The growth, like the velocity at which we grew post COVID was just crazy. We did 9 million in revenue in the first 14 months.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And I was not equipped, or again, just like I always felt like I was at a deficit because I didn't have the corporate background. So everything was so much trial and error. And I feel like I had to probably fail a lot more than
Yeah,
somebody else who had the more polished way of doing it. But we
yeah,
found a
yeah.
niche and it worked, and it still works today.
Very cool. One of the things that I always try to remind the creative community when we're in one of these conversations is do not be afraid to fail.
No, for
Fail
sure.
fail fast, fail often,
Yeah.
because that allows you to figure it out, which is what you said you guys did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Now that you're in this and you've got this moving and it's clipping along, what are some of the things that you're thinking about for future movement with the business? And what areas are you looking at that you might be able to make some more impact with?
yeah, it's really interesting because we sit on the demand and the supply side of things. So almost like a stub hub where we're catering to our demand, but we also have to procure our own supply.
Yeah,
And so the demand has always been there. The customer base has just always been like sitting ducks, I feel like. But
right.
securing the right supply, we're really focused on getting contracts rather than being liquidators and brokers. So the more contracts we get, like right now, I kind of feel like even after doing this for, I guess this is our sixth year, we're kind of like a two-legged stool. I have
Okay.
a few really great, strong contracts, but if one were to fall off, the business
Could
it
collapse.
doesn't fail, but it's
It's
happened a
going to
few
trip,
times the last
top
6 years.
over.
You lose a contract and all of a sudden your revenue is cut in half. So just
Right,
trying to like stabilize a bit more and build the foundation. And we
right.
had a new investor come in November he's a very eclectic investor. Like he had a crypto bank in Lithuania and owned
Okay,
a telehealth company, and he's just very well versed. So he's bringing a lot of cool ideas and experience to the table that I think will help us scale.
okay. And from a mission standpoint of the mindset of taking fashion and repurposing it, where do you see or envision that ultimately getting to a place of? Do you have a desire or a goal in mind that you would want for the rest of the world based off of what you're doing in your space?
Yeah, I guess for consumers, it's be mindful of purchasing purposefully because I don't think that people think about when I buy this thing, what's the exit? Like when I'm done with it, what am I going to do with it? And brands traditionally for a long time haven't thought that way either. When I produce this garment, how am I going to exit the garment? Is it my responsibility or does it become the responsibility of the consumer? So we have a long way to go, I think, to start to solve some of this overproduction stuff and millions of items sitting in landfill a year. But I think through our work with empowering resellers, we have around 7,000 resellers that sell used clothing on marketplaces,
Wow.
and us consulting and partnering with brands of what they should do with their clothing. Hopefully, we're moving the needle in some
Yeah,
capacity.
I think you are definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm seeing it just from afar
Mm-hmm.
how the this next generation is starting to look at fashion from the perspective of we're just going to go and buy something that was hot in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
because we can find it, or hot in the 90s because we can find it. And they're repurposing versus going to Fendi or going to Gucci or going to Prada. Now, there is still that marketplace for it, but I am seeing, from my perspective, a mindset shift in terms of what people are starting to do.
Yeah, and I think Gen Z is really driving that because
Yeah,
like the boomers were, very not for secondhand clothing. Like thrifting was for poor people, but
yeah,
the baby boomer generation, and it had a negative connotation to it. And then kind of the millennial world is when secondhand became cool. And now I think Gen Z is more like against the luxury purchasing and more purchasing secondhand fashion.
yeah. Have you maybe looked at or taken some opportunities with some of the social creators who are redesigning with used garments and creating new individualized pieces?
Yeah, we have a few customers that buy our damaged items to repurpose them, and we get damage in from all different types of brands, like Rent the Runway. We buy everything from them that is retired. So we send that out to our like repurposed customers, but we definitely need to tap into more of that.
Yeah, I think that would be something that would be a huge opportunity for you, um,
Mhm.
to look at least be a stream that can be a little bit continuously flowing. May
Yeah.
not be a huge river at first, or eventually it could get there, but I think it would at least be a nice moving stream,
Right.
uh, targeting some of those content creators that are taking design into their own hands, that are just doing it from home and creating these amazing pieces
Right.
that you look at and they're like, oh, wow. I mean, the one that comes to mind for me instantly is Justin Mensinger.
Nice.
He was on, um, oh, I think the show is called Next in Fashion with,
Oh,
with, was it Quavo from
yeah.
Migos?
Yeah, yeah.
Or Offset, one of those guys was one of the judges. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a high end stylist that's on there that was one of the judges, but Justin Mensinger was on one of those seasons. Nigel Xavier is another one that was on there that's doing some phenomenal stuff. And what's cool from my perspective is because they're doing these things and it's so unique and flavorful that these larger fashion houses are starting to recognize, oh wait, this young designer that doesn't really fit in our mold
Mm-hmm.
or our environment as a fashion house and the way that we do things is creating stuff that people are wanting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
maybe we should partner up,
Yeah.
you know, figure out something out, to kind of generate some crossover collaboration. I know Adidas has definitely done that quite a bit. Another person is actually a friend of mine. His name's Eric Lowry, here in Detroit. He goes by the handle El Cappy.
Okay.
Um, he is uh, he's a traditional creative artist, but he does a lot of one of one stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Works with StockX quite a bit. Works with a
Nice.
lot of local companies here. Carhartt. He did some stuff with Shinola, creating some
Oh, yeah,
one-offs.
they're based out of Detroit.
Yeah, yeah. Just different people like that
Mhm.
that there's opportunity to be like, hey, we've got a ton of product here. What kind of things might you need?
Yeah, yeah. There's probably a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, just another thought,
Mhm.
um, to help out, because what you're doing, again, it's huge from my perspective. Because I mean, if you've looked at any documentaries about the fashion industry and what's happening in India with their landfills and
Mhm.
stuff like that, it's just stacks, and it's literally mountains of clothing.
Yeah, there's an island of trash. Like
Yeah,
the island is full of trash, and a lot of that is clothing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It and it's sad because it's like how many people in these less fortunate countries could use that? Like it would be instant wardrobe and closet fillers for them, but
Yeah.
yet it's not even looked at like that.
Yeah.
Within the next 1 to 2 years, what is something that you have your eyes on and a goal for yourself of what you want to see take place or where you're moving towards to
I would
step?
love to take the next step and get out of startup mode. It,
Okay,
it's exhausting.
for sure.
Yeah, it's just like get out of startup mode and get to be able to sit down and really build out a 3-year plan. Like right now we're living off of a 6-month plan or a 12-month plan.
Okay,
Again, like if one thing falls, it's like it could be detrimental to the whole thing. So we're still in fight or flight
yeah,
often.
yeah,
So yeah, I think just like stabilizing and building a stronger foundation
right
is
on.
a goal. Yeah.
I get it. I get it. Being in that still in that startup mindset is it's stressful just in and
Mhm.
of itself, um,
Mhm.
because you're always kind of holding your breath as well as you're breathing in the
Right.
same sense, right?
Yeah. It's
'Cause
fun for the first 3 or 4 years, but we've been at it for 6 years. So I'm like, okay, it's gotta kind of come together at some point. So
yeah, it will.
yeah.
I feel confident that you've got it in you to again make that pivot
Yeah.
because again, I'm thinking about the little girl, the girl in the bagel shop.
Hmm.
the girl that just starts out at Plato's and figures out, hey, there's opportunity here.
Mm.
Uh, the girl that steps out into doing her own little consulting
Mhm.
agency. You've got everything that you need. And I just want you to keep that at the forefront of your mind if you can,
Yeah.
um, and move forward with some confidence.
Okay.
Um,
Theme of the day.
yeah, yeah. Listen, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with the creative community.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you for having me. This is like therapy.
well, I've done plenty of it myself
Right.
over the
Yeah.
years, so I've always been on the other side of the seat
Right. Yeah.
answering the questions. But yeah, I think the creative community, being able to get your perspective and see what you're doing, I think it'll give them a little bit of a different way of thinking. And
Good.
that's
Good.
my hope.
Cool.
So, one of the things that I always want to remind the audience at the end of each one of these episodes is to listen to your heart, but always be kind to your mind.
Mm.